Imagine a colossal, multi-armed god blazing across the sky, a warrior prince kneeling in the dust, head bowed, completely surrendered. Feels like timeless devotion. Now what if I told you that the same image was one of the most calculated political moves in the history of this subcontinent? Around 300 Common Era, the Gupta dynasty faced a fractured empire, and their rulers understood that most conquerors did not. Battles are won with soldiers, civilizations are won with belief. And as a respected scholar of that era might have said,
To own the future, you do not rule people. You shape the gods they pray to.
foundations that the Guptas built on were already there. In the Mathura region, the warrior clans called the Rishnis worshipped a deity called Krishna Vasudeva, a celebrated superhero, possibly a king of a dynasty in mythic times, remembered across generations. At the same time, Brahmin scholars of the Gangetic plains were quietly doing something extraordinary. They were planning to elevate Vishnu, a relatively minor deity in the Vedas, into a universal, unifying God, the protector of the universe. Think about that engineering challenge and literally that leap of faith. One God to unify hundreds of different sects. The Mahabharata accelerated the fusion of Vasudeva Krishna and Lord Vishnu, and then Bhagavad Gita gave it an unforgettable expression. Krishna declares, and listen to this carefully, he says,
I am the self seated in the heart of all living beings. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings.
This was a declaration. The hero of a clan in Mathura had become the supreme force of the entire universe. Let us move to 335 Common Era, where Emperor Samudragupta has won enough battles to understand their limits. Called the Napoleon of India, he'd conquered most rival kings across South Asia, and the lesson that he learned was remarkable. He knew that military victory can destroy kingdoms, but it cannot build a civilization. So he leveraged Lord Vishnu as a unifying force. He wove the Vishnu connection in every layer of royal identity. His title, Param Bhagavata, the supreme devotee of Vishnu. His emblem was Garuda, Vishnu's own vehicle. It was stamped on every gold coin in the empire. Every merchant, every farmer, every local chieftain holding those coins in their hands, encountering the same compelling message. The king and Vishnu were on the same side. In my novel, Mahadevi Dhruvadevi, the chief Gupta queen and the daughter-in-law of Emperor Samudragupta, sums up the strategy with the clarity of someone who had lived inside it. She says,
One Vishnu idol in every home, one temple in every city, one version of the Mahabharata for all.
Simple, ruthless, effective. I am Sarvajit and you are India's Golden Age podcast. Samudragupta's son and Dhruvadevi's second husband, Chandragupta II, carried the project further. Around 401 Common Era, on the slopes of a hill in Madhya Pradesh, after a long, bloody, tiring war with the Shakas, Western Shakas, lasting for a couple of decades, Chandragupta directs his favorite minister, Veersena, to build something remarkable. He builds a cave temple in Udayagiri, carving directly into the living rock, and dominating the cave wall was a colossal image of Varaha, Vishnu's boar in incarnation, staring through the cosmic flood to rescue the earth goddess Bhudevi. And near the edge of this immense scene, small, reverent, and his head bowed, stands possibly the king himself. The message was obvious. It required no words. Vishnu preserves the cosmic order. The king serves Vishnu. Together they define the structure of the universe. And then one fine day, and this was a move that nobody saw coming, came the boldest stroke of all. For centuries, Buddhism had enormous influence across India. Ashoka had spread it across the subcontinent and beyond. Buddhist monasteries flourished from Takshila to Tamralipti. It had deep roots in the Indian merchant class who funded it, who loved it. It had remarkable power. You cannot embrace a tradition or a faith that is so deeply embedded, and try to do it by force, and you'll get rebellion from the most influential and the wealthy merchant class. So the Brahmin theologists did something really out of the box. They absorbed Gautam Buddha into the Vishnu tradition as the ninth avatar. The sequence now ran Matsya, Kurma, Varaha, Narsimha, Vamana, Parashurama, Rama, Krishna, and then Buddha. Imagine doing that to an ascetic, a teacher who questioned the Vedic authority. But with this new innovation, Buddha was not an outsider. He was part of the Vishnu's own cosmic story. For millions of Buddhists across ancient India, the message was crystal clear, even if nobody said it out aloud. Your teacher, your guru, the Buddha, is part of this larger tradition. You might as well move in lock, stock, and barrel. There was no conflict, no persecution, no wars, no forced conversion, nothing, just redefinition, absorption, assimilation. So uniquely Indian. What makes this very interesting is that the idea of avatara evolved hand in hand with the concept of bodhisattva, that is the past lives of Buddha. Both traditions influenced each other and were motivated by a mission to restore dharma and alleviate suffering in different era and different times. Intrinsic concepts and beliefs like the avatara are just poetry or philosophy without the institutions. The Gupta kings understood this and they put their money where their mouth is. Through Devadana and Brahmadeya endowments, they granted tax-free land to temples and Brahmins across the empire. The temples were the institutions and the Brahmins were the institutional managers, and they did especially in areas which were at the periphery or the frontier. Over time, with growth in income and devotees, the temples became an extraordinary ecosystem. They were not just places of prayer, but also economic engines. They employed sculptors, goldsmiths, weavers, priests, farmers. They managed land, coordinated merchants, connected communities across hundreds of kilometers. A temple could secure a region more effectively, more quietly, more sustainably than a garrison would. By the reign of Kumaragupta, son of Dhruva Devi and Chandragupta, Vaishnava sites were all over the Gupta Empire. Wherever you traveled, the symbols were familiar. Garuda, Varaha, Vishnu reclining on the cosmic serpent. The spread of the Vishnu order was remarkably consistent, efficient, and coherent, helped in no small measure by the growth of the temple network. For most people across this vast subcontinent who could not read a line of Sanskrit, the temple was the scripture. It was a walking museum, a walking gallery. The sculpture was the text. Walk into any major temple and the stories surround you, the same gods, the same cosmic order reinforced. Nobody coordinated this from a central authority. There's no standardization council. That was civilisational coherence at an extraordinary scale. And how can we forget the Puranas, the civilization operating system that Guptas had built? I've done an episode on Puranas. The Puranas gathered myths, kings, gods, and cosmic history into vast narrative frameworks, into stories that travel from temple courtyards to village gatherings. These Puranas solved the problem that no empire before the Guptas had properly cracked. A Gupta queen might have framed the problem in this manner.
How do you unify Bharat, where every village already worships different gods, follows different rituals, observes different sacred calendars?
Imagine a Purana priest entering a village in Bengal. He carries a charter in one hand and Purana manuscript in another. He studies the local shrines, he listens to the tribal chief, and then he says,
"Your fish goddess is a form of Durga. The village river belongs to the sacred network of the Ganga. Your ancestors even fought beside Arjuna."
The chief stiffens.
Beside Arjuna? And what about the fish offerings?
The Brahmin says,
Don't worry. It is recognized within the Bhagavata tradition.
but by the time anyone investigated, the local tradition would emerge supporting the claim. Effectively, your gods remained, your rituals remained, but now you are plucked to the main network, to pilgrimage routes, to trade corridors, to the Trinity, to the shared mythology, the shared civilizational memory stretching back to mythic time. The Purana operating system was always backward compatible. Like all golden ages, the Gupta golden age also had a shadow. The Iranian inscription of 510 Common Era contains some of the earliest evidence of sati. Chinese traveler Fashian describes entire communities of chandalas living beyond village boundaries under strict social restrictions. Recent DNA studies suggest that widespread intermarriage across communities in India declined sharply roughly 1600 to 1900 years ago, overlapping exactly with the Gupta era. The caste distinctions were becoming stronger. Some scholars argue that the growing rigidity of caste helped drive the long-term genetic isolation and caused the genetic freeze of Indian population.
The bloodlines are locked.
Something that is hopefully changing now, but very, very slowly. Inclusion and exclusion has always moved together in India. The same framework that absorbed Buddha also drew tighter lines around who belonged to the mainstream and who did not. The tension has still not resolved. It still echoes across India. By 550 AD, the Gupta Empire had collapsed. The Huns were the main disruptor. The Gupta Golden Age was effectively over, but the ideas that it developed carried on. The temple architecture pioneered by the Guptas evolved into great sacred complexes of the later centuries. The Avatara doctrine became the heartbeat of the Bhakti movement that swept across India for more than 1,000 years. The modern concept of Hinduism, loosely described as Sanatan Dharma, which has meant various different things at different points of time, is a very late development. It largely crystallized around the 19th century. I mean, whatever you might call it, Hinduism or Sanatan Dharma, the cultural foundation of the philosophy, the temples, the Puranas, the Avatar doctrine, the culture of bhakti were laid in the Gupta era. It would not be an exaggeration to say that Guptas institutionalized and accelerated the development of Sanatan Dharma or modern Hinduism, or whatever you may like to call it. But the ingredients were always there, and the role of the Guptas was to combine these powerful ingredients into a delicious recipe. In 113 BC, centuries before the Gupta dynasty, a Greek ambassador named Heliodorus erected a pillar near Vidisha in central India, Madhya Pradesh. He dedicated to Vasudeva Deva, the god of gods. The same Vishnu deity, remember, that fused Vishnu? The Greek ambassador was not forced to do it. He chose to do it. Something in the tradition answered questions that he carried within himself. What holds the world together? What's the right way to live? Where does a single human being fit in the large order of cosmic universe? The Guptas did not invent these questions. They collated the answers and then embedded them in stone, in stories, in symbols. In the architecture of belief itself, the empire disappeared, but the stories, the ideas remained. And in many ways, they are shaping the world that we live in today. You have been on India's Golden Age podcast. Share and subscribe. And to immerse yourself deeply into the Gupta era, check out my novel on Dhruva Devi, the queen who made Chandragupta, coming out in September 2026. Bye for now. Stay curious and Jai Hind.